welcome. Welcome, welcome. We are going to begin soon. We're going to let people continue to show up. Monty's playing some keyboard. So just sit back and relax. We'll have some good times together. I hope you all have been having a really great solstice.
Happy solstice.
It's one of my favorite days of the year.
Here we are.
Thank you for joining this evening.
Here we are.
Shall we do some grounding?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Well, we should, okay. Should we introduce ourselves or ground first?
I think a little grounding could be helpful for all of us to virtually get on the same wave together.
Okay.
So, if you can, sit up nice and tall or stand and allow yourself to watch your breath for a few breaths here. Bring your awareness to the top of your head and allow the top of your head to become permeable, energetically permeable. You can even put your hand on the top of your head if you need to get a sense of the feeling, the energy here. And just breathing in and out the top of the head. Breathing through all the brain cells. And as you notice your brain starting to relax, drawing down the energy. So this is a grounding meditation. And from the top of your head, on an inhale, draw down the energy through the core of the body into the tailbone, sits bones, and then exhale down the legs, into the feet, into the ground. Inhale, top of the head, down the core. Exhale down the legs, into the earth. Just really feeling that for several breaths here, allowing yourself to just feel the piano, grounding down, settling in for the evening, preparing to learn some skills together. And a couple more grounding breaths. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Grounding the breath, breathing in through the top of the head, down the core of the body. Exhale down the legs, through the feet, into the earth. Allow yourself to engage your imagination, sensing what this feels like. Is there texture, color, vision? Any of the senses may trigger, and just being aware of them, mindfully looking at any senses that send you a signal. Breathing deeply. Inhaling through the top of the head, through the core of the body. Exhale down the legs, through the feet, into the earth. Grounding, settling, preparing our minds to learn together, to experience together, and also being open to the energies that are present at this time. There's a lot of astrological energies happening, and you might sense them in meditation. Calling in all our friends who wish to be here together with us now as we continue to breathe while they find their way here. Thank you for being here on our inaugural webinar. We've never done this before, so thank you. I think my mic's, I can't hear this. I don't think so. You think I know? Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. My headphones aren't telling me anything. So I hope you can hear me.
Yeah. Check 1, 2. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. All right, all right.
All right.
Here we are. So
Here we
there's a couple people who would like to come in to this evening celebration. Now I hear myself great. Woo! It's a good thing that I don't mind my voice.
Okay.
All right.
Happy solstice, everybody.
Yeah. Welcome. This is our inaugural event. This is our way of saying hello. We exist and you do too, and we're really glad to be here together. So I'm Jaylyn, and this idea of sharing some tips on resiliency seemed like something that could serve our world. And there's a lot of suffering going on in the world, and a lot of us have had suffering in the past. So add that to the current events. It can be a time of a lot of fear and struggling. So we felt like it would be a good idea to have a resiliency gathering on such an auspicious day as the solstice.
Yeah. Well, my name is Lamont, and I'm a psychotherapist and Tai Chi instructor. And ex-rugby player, and author of the Mindfulness Handbook. And yeah, resilience is a super important thing that for all of us to learn and for all of us to possess, like a psychological type of resilience. So in other words, if it's sort of like the tree that is blowing in the wind and then comes back to the center, being resilient. You know, and part of that is just being fluid, and if we're rigid, we can just break.
Absolutely.
But we're going to be looking at what resilience is from a mindfulness perspective.
And how they are intertwined.
Yeah, and how to build more resilience. And we're going to leave you with some tips you can use essentially throughout your life to help you remain balanced. And in the world of psychology, they would call these learning emotional regulation skills, right? So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. We have a musical bend to our delivery, so you'll be hearing some music along with guided relaxations and theory, mindfulness theory, essentially.
Yeah, so this evening, as you have already experienced, we're going to have some meditation with the piano, and then we'll give some skills and do a little movement, and then give some skills and have a little meditation. And then we're going to open it up for a question and answer. So if you have any questions that you would like answered, that'll be the time. So I guess I should also add who I am. I'm a mindful yoga coach, and I serve people who struggle with anxiety and depression and trauma. And I specialize in trauma recovery, mainly because I've had to recover myself. So there's been a lot of experience and seeking knowledge in
She's the
recovery. Maybe someday I'll be really good, but for now I can say that I've healed enough that I can share. And that's what I have to offer, is a little bit of hope that it's possible. It is absolutely possible to heal. It does take perseverance. It does take effort. It does take wisdom.
Yeah.
And we all have the wisdom to find our teachers and our guides, and we can do some research on our own. But the hard part is doing the work daily, and also having a support group. Most of us have been wounded in relationship, and the best way to heal is in relationship, in supportive relationships. So that's another part of this, is that we want you to know that we're here holding space, and we have a community group that we've started, and we'll talk more about that later. But it's been very dynamic and fun to just know that we can heal together. Yeah, so take it away. Do you want to come up here?
My cord's kind of limiting me to this spot for now. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey there. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the mind. And
Here's this if you'd like.
oh, thank you. Let's talk about the mind. How we can become more resilient through working with our mind. And essentially the mind has two modes of operation. One of these modes is thinking. The mind thinks, the mind analyzes. The mind is great at thinking and analyzing, the human mind. You know, we're just like, we're great at figuring things out, right? So that's one mode of the mind that is very, I would say, jacked up in our society. You know, the analysis, the thinking. The other mode of mind, the second mode, is the place of presence and awareness. And that's the time when the mind is quiet. Right? When we're thinking, the mind is kind of chattering. There's this internal dialogue that just talks, 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 talks. And when we're in a state of presence or awareness, one way of looking at it is the place that transcends the analytical mind. So it's a transcendent place of stillness and quiet. It's, for example, it's that place when you look at a beautiful sunset and the mind is sort of stunned. It's quiet. It's not analyzing the sunset. It's not saying, oh, there's pink and yellow and blue and purple, and the reason the sun is this way is this and this and this. That's one way of doing it, but another way, the way of presence, is to just take it in. You just soak it in. The mind is quiet. Boom. And that place of presence is super important for our mental health. Very, very important. Ideally, we want to find balance between the analytical portion of our mind and the analytical portion and the awareness. So ideally, we want to be analyzing something, and then we have a little break. When the mind is quiet. And then we analyze some more, and then the mind's quiet again. And you see, every time we go into that quiet space, the mind is rejuvenated. The analytical portion is rejuvenated. And one thing I believe is that in our culture, in our present culture, we tend to be just super analytical. So we're just thinking. We can think our way through anything, analyze our way through anything. But that's unnatural for the mind. And when we go into that place of overanalyzation, of overthinking, the mind actually becomes agitated. The mind is agitated because it's out of balance. It's not getting those little breaks, those breaks of awareness. And I'd like to say even a 2-second break of pure awareness is helpful. So it doesn't have, you don't need this like peak experience of 5 minutes of awareness, which is what a peak experience is, by the way. It's the place of just like awareness, being in the zone. Perhaps that's another way to think of a mind state that's primarily boom in awareness. And it's something we all desire, essentially because it's that place of feeling really, really, really alive. That's what presence can do for us. But unfortunately, in our world, where we're inundated with so much information, we live in the information overload age, right? So all this information comes pouring into our minds through various sources. A lot of it is through screens nowadays. So there's information and misinformation pouring into our minds every day, this onslaught of information. And the way our mind deals with that is when information comes in, we process the information. So we're ingesting information, we're eating information, and then we're processing, ingesting, processing, ingesting, processing, ingesting, processing. And if we don't give ourselves a break from that, our mind is stuck in analysis practically all the time. And like I said, when that happens, the mind gets agitated. And the agitated, all negative emotions spin out of the agitated mind. If my mind is agitated, I'm far more likely to snap at my kids. I'm far more likely to feel guilty about something. I'm far more likely to just sink into depression Depression is the agitated mind just wearing out, because we can't stay agitated forever, so it wears out. Goes into a depressed state. Like that noise. That's the way it sounds too. You can hear it if you. No, just kidding. So, in other words, if we're able to find balance in our minds, then our minds are more relaxed and clear, right? If we can get to that place of thinking, awareness, thinking, awareness, thinking, awareness, just throughout the day, having breaks. Every time you're able to get to that place of awareness, I want to say this, super important. It's like the mind taking a mini nap. So like the analytical part of the mind just relaxing. You know, and you want to think of your mind as your body, kind of. And if you work out all the time without taking breaks, what happens? You get injured. The same is true with the mind. You know, we just can't think our way out of everything, right? So what we're going to be doing this class is we're going to work on different ways you can find presence, right? And ways you can use this presence periodically throughout the day. We're going to be working on mindfulness on the fly skills, which you can use anytime, anywhere, which for your entire life. And I can guarantee you, if you're able to be that witness to your thoughts, which is it's called metacognition, by the way. It's cognition of cognition. It's being the witness to your thoughts. This is step one, by the way, in being present. It's being the witness to your thoughts. So then you can notice when you're ruminating, notice when you're overthinking, notice when you're stuck in some eddy in your mind that's not benefiting you. And at that point of being the witness to your thoughts, being the consciousness behind the thoughts, being the mind behind the mind, essentially, at that point, you are in charge. Rather than your thoughts being in charge of you, you are now in charge of your thoughts. Congratulations. It's very empowering. So there's a real aspect of freedom about this, because a lot of us are caught up in old habits of thinking, including the rumination, and our thoughts are running us, essentially, to a large extent in our culture. And if you want to achieve a level of freedom and being in charge of your thoughts, step one is that metacognition piece. It's noticing when your mind is just rambling on and on and on and on, or stuck in some negative patterns such as judgment, hatred, jealousy. I mean, we all go there essentially for moments. But the idea of resilience is if I get angry, boom, I'm going to notice it. I'm going to feel that emotion fully. I feel it. I'm going to notice why I'm angry. I'm going to have thoughts around it. And then I'm going to make that decision eventually to come back to center. You see, it's up to me. Instead of my thoughts just ruminating on this thing that's making me angry over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and staying in that emotional place of anger, I'm going to be like, that's enough. I'm going to tone it down. I'm going to wind it back. I'm going to take control of the situation. So you start noticing these thoughts that you're ruminating about. And like I said, we all get angry, but the idea is if you're good at mindfulness and emotional regulation, you can come back to center quicker. And what happens if you don't come back to center, if you remain angry, you know what happens. You say things you don't mean, you know, who knows what can happen. You get in fights, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a super valuable skill to notice it. Okay, I'm angry about this and this and this. Okay, I think I'm going to come back to center now and deal with this effectively. So that's emotional, or that's how metacognition can help free you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like metacognition because it adds a level of being the fly on the wall. I that's how I used to say it before I knew the word, is to be the fly on the mind, be the fly on the wall
Okay,
of my
yeah.
mind,
Yeah,
and
right.
just look at all the things going on and is there anything that I can do to make that better? I really just want to change your mic
Oh, that's my
really bad.
mic.
Yes, it is your mic.
Oh, I had no idea.
Driving me nuts.
Well, thank you for like
There you go. All better.
finally. I thought it was my headphones because every time I moved my head, it happened. I was like, dang. Sorry, everybody. Well, we figured that out finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so being the fly on the wall and observing.
Yeah.
It's
And
the quality of observing too, I want to say.
yeah, because you said that there was a difference between metacognition and mindful metacognition.
Right. Well, essentially, mindfulness is non-judgmental awareness. It's that non-judgmental piece. So if I'm noticing my place, my mind, my thoughts from a mindful perspective, I'm not judging myself. If I get caught in old patterns that are unproductive, whatever they may be, I don't like notice it and say, "Oh, how could you be so stupid?"
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. I
God,
wish I.
won't you ever grow up? You know, or whatever. I mean, that the negative self-talk piece that comes from a judgmental habit in our
Yeah.
mind, and that comes from noticing. Perhaps if you notice your own thoughts, you don't want to look at that from a judgmental perspective, but from a discerning one, which is a lot like a scientific perspective. You notice, you try and see all the variables. So if I get caught up in an old mind habit, even though it's unproductive, I'll understand. Oh, that old habit. I'll recognize it. It's kind of like an old friend that I just don't want to see around, don't want to be with very much, and then, but I'm not like mad at it, or I'm not. And I understand that a lot of these old patterns and habits have been passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. So some of these patterns that I'm trying to overcome in my own mind perhaps are thousands of years old, perhaps 10,000 years old. But now is the time for us to, boom, change those habits. Because now we have the knowledge, the know-how, the wisdom, the ability to like shift it. We have the ability to reboot our mind. We have the ability to notice an old habit rolling away. And if we train enough, which you were talking about training being important, if we train
Imperative.
enough, yeah, man, at that point we have this skill to reboot or re-steer our old thinking patterns. And lo and behold, what happens up here in the brain is new neural connections are made. So you're actually building neural highways, a new neural highway system in your brain through this kind of work. And the old habits, the old thoughts, they're like very strong in your neural connections at the beginning, but then as you start re-steering and rebooting, they diminish. They turn from a superhighway into a double lane road, into a path in the country. And eventually, ideally, they're kind of just gone. And the old patterns reemerge every now and then, but you just mindfully notice it. Oh, that old pattern. And you just let it go.
That's where I find that's where the rubber meets the road is when the old pattern comes again and it's been a decade and you've been trying really hard. But it's still worth it. It's still worth the effort of saying,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that again. Okay, I see you and I choose different.
Yeah, right. It's almost like a conscious philosophy of I'm going to evolve now. That's my
Yeah.
philosophy. I'm going to evolve. I don't need this old pattern anymore. I don't need to hate all those people or whatever it is. And that worked for us when we were cavemen, right? We needed to fight over the water hole. Otherwise, the neighboring tribe is going to take it away from us and we're going to all die. So we have that in us to like look at them. We got to get rid of them. We got to get rid of them and them and them. those are old habits, old mind habits that we need to evolve past. And now's the time.
Yeah, now is the time, and which is why we're here together now.
Yeah, and I'd like to say the more harsh my mind is when it comes to like looking out into the world, if I'm like super judgmental when I look out into the world and be like, that person's in blank, and I hate to say these words, I mean, but name calling is always a sign of judgment. Always, always. Any derogatory name, boom, that's judgment. And if I find myself calling people names in my mind, I'm judging them. I'm judging them. I'm judging them. I mean, we live in this world where half the people judge the other half. There's this huge judgment vibe going on in our culture.
But we want to
right
change
now.
that.
Yeah, but there are pockets and in a growing number of people who are saying no to that.
Mm-hmm.
The world does not need more hatred, perhaps.
No, we need a new way. It's time for a new path altogether.
Yeah, and another problem with judging others, if I'm into that habit, is then when I make a mistake, boom, I apply that judgment to myself. I judge myself, and then my self-esteem tanks. And then I don't feel good. I don't feel good about myself. And then, so what do? I blame others. So you get caught in that cycle. And then I make a mistake, because we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I make tons of mistakes. And if I judge myself when I make a mistake, like I said, boom, there goes the self-esteem again. And what am I going to do? I'm going to start blaming other people. If I'm in that habit. So it's a cycle that we need to break out of. And if we stop judging others, then we stop judging ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and then the self-esteem starts going up. And I'm not saying use discernment rather than judgment. Be scientific about your analysis of the culture and yourself and your own thoughts. And you need to work with your mind garden, essentially, and you have to learn how to plant healthy thoughts, healthy patterns into your mind garden, and you need to learn how to weed out the unproductive old patterns that are not working for you anymore. If you want to change it for the better, if you want to move forward as far as, evolvement.
Yeah. So resilience is being able to spring back. It also is when the body is able to heal faster. So we all are seeking that. We all want to feel good. No matter who you are, what you believe, you want to feel good. And the person next to you wants to feel good. And every person in your town wants to feel good. And so on it goes. How do we increase our rate of healing? How do we increase our ability to sleep at night? Well, that's resilience and mindfulness. So I wanted to share that there was a study done on the East Coast. It was done at a VA, a veterans. I'm losing my words, but it was a yoga study. And in the study, they looked into resilience and mindfulness. These were the gauges on whether or not the yoga was helpful for PTSD. So it was veterans with PTSD. And as they did yoga, they noticed that the resilience and the mindfulness both went up at the same time, at the same rate. So what that says to me is that resilience and mindfulness are ultimately intertwined and inseparable. So as we use our metacognition, then we are coming into resilience.
Yeah,
we're starting to spring back. Oh, I'm falling over. Oh, okay, I'm back. So would you like to share a skill?
Sure. So we're talking about weeding out unproductive mind patterns from your garden. And one mind pattern that as I'd mentioned earlier, basically all of us have some of this. It's just overthinking, right? So we need space between our thoughts. And an effective technique at creating space between our thoughts, well, it's a yoga practice. And it's a mantra, or I call it in psychology, I call it focus words. These are focus words, and essentially what they do, okay, let's say my mind is chattering away and not settling down, and I'm mad about something or whatever. It's just chattering too much. Doesn't that drive you crazy when the mind thinks too much? It drives me nuts. I think it gives me headaches sometimes.
Yeah,
I
totally.
know, really. I have a headache and then my mind won't shut up. It's like, what came first, the headache or just the constant like rambling? I hate headaches. Anyway, so this is a way to perhaps even reduce headaches. And ideally, too, I want to mention that these skills you want to train when you're feeling okay.
Yeah.
That this is really crucial. And this is a big mistake a lot of people make with mindfulness is they try and save it until there's some kind of crisis. And it's like, I got to use it. But then you're not good enough at it for it to work.
Yeah.
You see, you need to train when you're feeling good, or when you're feeling neutral, or when you're feeling just not so good, you know. But
Or
you
just daily.
Yeah, you
Really.
just train.
That's the best way.
It's a lot like training the body, training the mind. And it's something, one really cool thing about this is you can train the mind anytime, anywhere, and nobody knows you're doing it except yourself. So it's making use of your time, certainly. And you'll notice definite results like virtually immediately when you start using these techniques. And the more you use these techniques, the more you practice, the better you get, the more effective they become. As I mentioned, you'll be like rewiring your brain physically. And there's a study from a university in South Korea that tested the brain and how it actually, the frontal lobe of the brain actually gets thicker through mindfulness practice. I think it was through a 6-week course, and their frontal lobes were getting thicker. The amygdala, which is the primal brain back here, shrunk, and the connection between the two got stronger. So that's like one result of 6 weeks of training in mindfulness. And as I said, we're fans of the idea of mindfulness on the fly. Just use it anytime, anywhere. And that's what I'm going to teach you now is a skill using focus words or a yoga technique, a mantra. So we're going to coordinate our breathing while we repeat a mantra in our mind, or focus words. And as you're breathing in, let's just talk about the breath. First of all, as you're breathing in, you feel the ribs expand a little bit as you're inhaling. And then just kind of let go, but temper it. You want to make sure you exhale all the way. The body exhales on its own. And breathing in, putting just a slight bit of effort into the inhalation. Feeling the ribs expand all the way around. Exhaling, ribs come together, lengthening the exhalation. So your exhalation is actually going to be longer than your inhalation with this particular practice. Now, as you're breathing in, you want to combine these focus words in your mind. Say the word so, S-O-O-O. As you're breathing in, saying so in your mind. Exhaling, lengthening the exhalation in your mind, saying hum, hum in your mind. Breathing in so. Exhaling hum, lengthening the exhalation hum. And you want to make these words loud in your mind. Like I said, what's going to happen is this chatter that you're used to hearing is going to boom. It's going to get quieted down by these focus words. You're going to say so. Exhale hum. Finding a little bit of peace in your mind. I love using these words when I'm walking. And just the simplest way of doing it is just to coordinate it with your breathing. Postural awareness is a big deal as well. Just your head's being pulled up from above. Shoulders up, back, and down. Exhaling fully. And breathing in. So, exhaling home. All right. And I'm going to just tell a little story about how I use those words. I used this technique once. I was driving with my girls. I have two daughters. I had two teenage daughters in the car with me. I'm driving. And one of them, I can't remember the details, but I do remember in my mind I said, I just got dissed. So one of them dissed me somehow or another. And I was like, I felt myself getting mad. I was getting angry. I started driving a little faster, started like, saying some things. And then after a minute or so of that, in my mind, I was like, okay, that's enough. That's enough. You keep going with this, you're going to, who knows, get a ticket or say something really stupid that you can't take back, all that. So I went into so hum, and I'm like, and then the thought came back, boom, whatever it was. But I had like a 2-second break from the anger. Then the thought came back, I got angry again. So I did it again. So I was able to maybe take a 5-second break. And then the anger came back again, right at me. But I stayed with it. Went back into the so-hum. Maybe had 10 seconds of freedom from the angry thought. Then I came back again. But I stayed with it. So-hum one more time, for a few, maybe 15 seconds, and bam, the angry thought went away. And I remember that moment when it was gone. I was driving. I was like, the thought's gone. I did it. So I started thinking about other things, and it was like, that's an example of how to use this as an emotional regulation skill. And obviously, if I wouldn't have been well rehearsed, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Mm-hmm. I would have tried, it would have given me a couple seconds of freedom, and then that would have been it, out the window, and then I'd have been, God knows what, saying, or driving too fast, getting pulled over by the cops, or whatever it is. But it worked, and that's an example of how to use it, how to use these skills as a way to have resilience, right? It's because like I was getting thrown off, but boom, I brought it back. I was like, whoa, this works. This is really important stuff.
It is. And it's used in so many traditions. Mantra and focus words, that idea of tempering the mind by putting ancient words on it, mantras. So hum is a really great one.
Yeah,
it actually spans across many traditions.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Really cool.
It's like Christian, Jewish, Hindu,
Buddhist.
Yeah, Buddhist. Look at that. I mean, what I tell people is when they start practicing so hum, they're part of this huge secret worldwide club. And there's lots of us around. I mean, and I've been teaching it a lot, as a mental health therapist, and I've had tremendous results. People overcoming social anxiety or vastly reducing social anxiety as they walk into a store doing so hum. It's super effective.
I would have to add that was my first tool long ago. Well, I guess it's my second tool, really. But it was the first one that helped me start to become aware of the fly on the wall. Metacognition was mantra.
Yeah.
And the way that I dealt with it is I was doing my mantras and the voice was still talking. So then I put 2 mantras on top of each other, and I would make one voice do one mantra and the other voice do the other mantra until I got my mind to be quiet. And it would work. And that began my love of yoga, of bhakti yoga specifically, which is the devotional yoga filled with lots of lovely mantras. And do you mind if I piggyback on your skill?
No.
Okay. Do you want to stand? Because you can just take your headphones off and make it stand. I know you're kind of feeling stuck there.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way that I've found to be true through different research and yoga studies, especially with veterans with PTSD, because there's been a lot of research done with them because it is a big issue. And what they have found is that the double long exhale is very beneficial in bringing the nervous system back into homeostasis or back into optimal life, optimal vitality. So the idea, and it could be as boring as you count 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But I find that boring. So I like to use a mantra. And my favorite mantra is Om Tat Sat. Om is the resonance of the universe. Tat is my offering. I offer this. And Sat is my truth. So you're offering your truth to the divine vibration of the universe. Om Tat Sat. So how I use this is I inhale a slow Om Tat Sat, but not too slow. There's an activeness to the inhale, like Monty was saying. It's opening the ribs purposefully. And as you exhale, it's very tempered and slow. You can imagine that you're blowing out of a straw or blowing on a wind instrument or singing a long note. Any way that gets you to slow down your breath a little bit. So it would be inhale, Om Tat Sat. Exhale, Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Inhale, Om Tat Sat. Exhale, Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Inhale, Om Tat Sat. Exhale, Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Inhale, Om Tat Sat. Exhale, Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Inhale, Om Tat Sat. Exhale, Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. A couple more. So that's just a feel of this skill. You will notice that your nervous system calms down. It's pretty foolproof, actually. So this ratio of 1 to 2, 1 inhale, 2 exhale, has been studied and shown to be true most of the time. I think it's in the 90%. So that is a great one to teach yourself how to notice I'm agitated, I'm upset, I'm happy. I just want to feel this moment, and then you can go into that Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, or you could go so hum, so hum, so hum. However you like, or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Any of those will work. And you can translate this into walking. But I think first we should talk about standing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, since we're standing, that's a good idea. Because standing mindfully is actually a big deal. And something, I teach Tai Chi. I've been practicing Tai Chi for probably 29 years. And Tai Chi just starts with standing. In the old days in China, you go to the Tai Chi master guy and you're like, teach me please. Okay, you're gonna learn how to stand now. And they'll take like months training them how to stand. because it's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, it's really
Really, but
involved.
it's super important, and it's a great way to be present. This standing, I consider, I call this practice standing in line at the bank.
I do want to say that if you can't stand, imagine that you're standing.
Yeah, or just
And
sit with good posture if that's possible,
mhm.
because that's a lot of it is the upper body is the head's being pulled up from above. You know, the shoulders are up, back, and down. You want to imagine there's an egg under each armpit. But you want it to be natural. Like I said, you want to be able to stand in line at Walmart and nobody's going to like notice anything. But you could be in the zone. You know, you'd be doing your breathing if you want. You could be working on your mantra. But standing properly is a big deal if you want to take care of your hips and your knees, and you want to be rooted into the ground and resilient. Ideally, you want your feet underneath your hips, and you want the weight equally distributed in both feet. You want the weight to be primarily into the balls of the feet. So it's almost like you're ready to jump, is the feeling. The knees are soft. The knees are not locked. That's a big habit a lot of us get into. A lot of people stand, you know, with their hip off to the side and the knee locked. And I just, in the long run, that'll wreck your knees.
Mm-hmm.
It'll wreck your hips. So just standing with the knees soft is a big deal when it comes to self-care. It's like really basic self-care that is not really taught a whole lot. But that's what we love the idea of postural awareness being a really potent mindfulness practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to get grounded and resilient. And if your knees are bent, you're ready to move too. So you're actually more resilient.
And balanced.
If your knees are, yeah, you're
Nobody
more balanced.
can knock you off.
Yeah, a big wind comes, you just flow with it, come back to the center.
Or a dog runs by.
Yeah, I
Hits
mean,
your
you're ready to
leg.
deal with whatever comes your way. You're more resilient, you're more balanced when you stand this way.
Mm-hmm.
And bonus, it's better for your knees. Bonus, it works your quads
Strengthens your
as
quads.
well. Because instead of your knee joints holding you upright, the knees are bent, forces the quads to hold you up, and you just want to find that balance with the upper body. What do you have to say about this? You're really good. She's really good at standing.
I wish I practiced it more, honestly. I go back into old habits. So one thing that is very important that I've noticed with people that I work with, people who've experienced trauma, there's this idea that we have to grip the earth with our toes. And right now, just notice how your toes feel. And if they are gripping the earth or your shoes or the ground, relax them. You will remain balanced. Relax your toes. And then the weight is evenly on both feet, like he was saying. Knees are slightly bent, but you don't want the knees bent over the toes. You want to be able to see your toes. You don't want to bend them beyond, just slightly bending them. It's just a
softness.
Yeah. And you also want to have your feet pointing the same direction of your knees. So if your knees are kind of going, I know I'm wearing dark pants, so I can't see anything. Didn't think of that. But if your feet are pointing, if your knees bend out, don't think you can see that.
What she's saying, if your knees are bent out, you take your feet and you point them out as well.
Yeah. And if you bend your knees forward and your feet are forward, if that feels really odd, then just shift your feet out a little bit. So it's not an actual V. It's more of just parallel lines that don't exactly look like they're parallel. Good try. We're trying all kinds of things, trying to show. I'm blending into the background though. Okay, so that's the bottom half.
Yeah, you find what feels right for you.
Yeah. And then there's something with the hips that's really hard to portray. And I'm just going to say it, and hopefully you can feel it in your body. But the idea is that you allow your tailbone to just drop towards the earth. So your knees are bent, the feet are relaxed and holding you up. And then you allow your hips. I'm just going to turn. So you allow your hips to just be relaxed. Be relaxed. Because a lot of us have this extra arch, and then there's the opposite of tucking too far. And you don't want to tuck too far either, because that's hard. So there's this, just let your tailbone drop towards the earth, and then allow your whole pelvis to just relax a little bit. And that's the full lower half. And then the upper half, you want the heart slightly lifted, but not dramatically, just enough so that you can breathe up into your heart center. You want to be able to breathe into the belly, the back, the ribs, all the way around. Lift the heart a little bit, relax your shoulders. We hold so much tension in our shoulders, just relax your shoulders. And then if you need to get the flow of chi in your arms, if you're having shoulder issues or elbow issues, it is good to have that space in your armpits, but to do this in Walmart I wouldn't feel comfortable. So I just go into the green giant is what I call it. And this is how I stand in line at the store. So then you bring your chin a little bit back. So you don't want to be leaning your chin forward. You want to have your chin a little bit back, but not so far back that you feel very awkward. There's this point, just like the tailbone, the tailbone and the neck actually mirror each other. So you have to find this place where the tailbone drops and the neck is the chin is up slightly, in slightly, and then it's like you're pulling up from a string at the top of your head. And that's proper posture.
All right.
Do you have any more to say about that?
It's just a great idea to try and get into this habit of standing optimally.
Even when you're doing dishes and cooking.
Wherever you are.
And that's when the metacognition comes in, and I'm like, oh, hips forward, knees locked, over to the side. That's how I talk to myself. And the mindful metacognition, of course, is not being upset about it, but coming back into proper posture and just not judging myself for it. That's the hard part, honestly.
Mm-hmm. But it's a great habit to get into, and to just use it as much as possible. Like you were saying, if you're doing the dishes, I mean, as far as Tai Chi, the Tai Chi movement, you want to be fluid too. You want the movement to come from the legs through the torso, out the hands. No matter what you're doing, it's an optimal movement kind of thing. But there's a lot there that needs. If you're interested in this, I would suggest taking up some Tai Chi, really. I mean, Tai Chi is a great art at teaching optimal movement.
And it's a really, really great. Before this webinar, I was all amped up and I wanted to meditate. I was like, I'm going to go meditate. And I went to meditate. I was like, not happening. So I got up and I did Tai Chi. And it was just super meditative and just moving with my joints. And I was so grateful that I did that, because though I couldn't sit and meditate, which is something that we all have dealt with, right? Is this the busy mind? Is why sit? It's not going to be quiet. So then Tai Chi, yoga, going for a walk, doing this breathing while you're walking. So I feel like we should summarize the skills that we've shared with you and open it up for Q&A. Yeah, it's that time already. So, I know you look very surprised.
Well, yeah. I would just like to cover something else.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's super important in our culture, and it has to do with our mental diet.
Okay.
Our mental diet, which is something that in our culture, it's very common for people to talk about their diet and take it very seriously. Oh, I'm on a keto diet. I'm a vegan. I'm whatever. uh, gluten reduced.
That's what you are.
Yeah. But I mean, so we kind of hone in on his diet thing, and it's great. It's good to have a healthy diet. Yes, 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 yes. But what gets ignored is our mental diet. What food are we feeding our minds, and how much of it are we feeding our minds? And I would suggest that we need to be both moderate and choosy with our mental diet as well. And that means we need to push back. I mean, the stuff is so addictive. You know, the phone, Facebook, and whatever, scrolling. It's like I lose my mind. It's like, oh my God. So I push back on it. I push back. I'll delete it from my phone. It's gone. At least for a while. I go through, it's something you might want to try. It's a media fast where you know, zero news. Zero. I think it's a good idea just taking the news app off your phone, by the way. That's been very helpful for me. If I want to look at news, I'll look it up myself. I don't need to be fed, you know, news. If I'm curious about something, I'll just look it up. You know, so, but go on a media fast, which means no media, no news, no TV, no movies, no, you know, stay away from the radio. An interesting component to a media fast, and I suggest you try this, even if you're not on a media fast, is try driving down the road, not looking at billboards. That is really interesting, but that's part of my media fast, is not looking at billboards. And you learn a lot about your mind going on a media fast. And I've noticed, you know, if I'm driving down the road and I drive past a billboard I've seen like 1,000 times, my eyes just want to look at it again. You know, it's really interesting. The mind seeks information. It seeks data. And I think that's why we're so hooked into the Facebook or just the whole screen time thing in general, because it's all data coming at us, but we're overloaded. We're overloaded with this. We need to push back. We need to be moderate with our mental diet. You know, so what does that mean? You know, as far as Facebook goes, it can be, I mean, personally, you know, we're a part of the Temple of the Mind group in Facebook. Temple of the Mind. Join us if you want. You know, so I'll look at that in the morning. But then if I'm on some kind of media fast, I won't scroll. I'll just look at it for 15 minutes, do my thing, and then get off. And that's it. Boom. You know, I won't turn on the radio in the car sometimes. You know, I mean, I push back because I need to be choosy with my mental diet. And God knows if I'm not choosy with my mental diet, this stuff keeps me up at night. Mm-hmm. My mind just keeps going. I can wake up in the middle of the night, my mind is thinking about some Facebook argument I'm having, you know. So
Don't have Facebook arguments.
She doesn't like when I get a Facebook argument. I don't like it either. I'm weaning way back on that. So, but I mean, just, yeah. And noticing judgment, noticing the judgment that's out there, noticing the judgment that comes through the media even. I mean, I feel like the whole media thing is like training us to be judgmental, because the media is judgmental. And you have to, you know, besides name calling, every time you hear somebody call somebody a name, just in your mind say, oh, that's judgment. Don't condemn it, but just notice it. Oh, that's judgment. Oh, that's judgment. Oh, that's judgment. Even they call them microaggressions. It's judgment. Somebody rolling their eyes. Oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about. You know, that's judgment. You know, so anyway, let's be moderate and choosy with our mental diets. Try and really reduce the mental junk food. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to determine what mental junk food is on your phone. You know, you have to make that decision. What's worth it, what's not. And know that if you're not moderate, what's going to happen is your mind is going to get overwhelmed with data, and you're not going to have much peace because your mind's just going to be rolling. Like I said, it's like the data comes in and then you analyze it. Data comes in and you analyze it. Data comes in and you analyze it. You don't want to be caught in that cycle all day long, every day. I mean, no wonder people have anxiety and are depressed.
You have to have time to
No wonder.
process.
And we need time for peace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you process, then we need time to
Mm-hmm.
not process and just be connected to the present, that presence piece again, that quiet, that transcendental state of awareness. We need to get there, and we can't get there if we're not moderate with our mental diet. So anyway, that's my spiel on our culture right now. And that's why I had this. It's
No
important.
problem.
It's
Yeah,
super
it's okay.
important for resilience.
It is super important. And I'm going to piggyback on that. And there is a very, very simple meditation that you should, could, can do before bed. This very much helps have a good night's sleep. And it's a 15-minute, or you can do 3 minutes. But the idea is that you have equal parts of time. And one is to allow yourself to process your day. Who have I seen? Who did I talk to? What happened? Anything your mind wants to say is okay. You process. That's your first 5 minutes. Your second 5 minutes is training. So you do Soham, Om Tat Sat, an affirmation or a different mantra that means something to you. And you do that straight for 5 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes, you try to just be. No mantra, following the breath. And as soon as you notice that your mind is ruminating or going back into some pattern of thought, you bring back in the mantra. And then as you do that for a breath or two, and then be silent, wait for it, enjoy the silence. Oh, there's a thought. Okay, I'm going to go back to my mantra. So you do that for 5 minutes. So you have 5 minutes of processing, 5 minutes of training in a focus word or mantra, and 5 minutes of attempting to be present and just be in silence. And I can guarantee you that you'll sleep better because all of those thoughts got processed. Just like in our digestive system, you don't want to go to bed right after you eat. That's another one. If you go to bed right after you eat, your guts are like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be standing up or sitting up. So I don't want to add too much. We could go on and on and on. But I do, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and I'd like to say that as far as sleeping, a technique I use is the simple Soham.
Yeah, Soham really
When
does
I
work.
wake up, I have the tendency I'll wake up at 2 in the morning with like all these worries like, coming at me. And if I catch it in time and I start going into Soham, if I notice I'm waking up and there's like this echo of this idea that's slowly making its way toward me, if I catch it in time and go into Soham, sometimes in 1 or 2 breaths, boom, back asleep. Rather than, and if I wait too long, however, and that thought, that echo gets louder and louder and boom, it engages my mind and then I'm on the ride, and that might be 2 hours of just thinking and then I go into Soham and fall back asleep. But if I catch it in time, it's just like I immediately fall back asleep. I've done that numerous times.
Or even if you don't catch it in time, just by the act of having the focus words and the breath focus while you're not sleeping
Yeah.
is helpful for your body.
Yeah.
Because your body has to get a certain amount of rest
Yeah.
to trigger the growth hormone and the whole healing process. And if you don't get enough rest, well, we all know how that feels. So if you can't fall asleep, you could at least be training. You could at least be
Yeah.
working on your focus words and your breathing and working on relaxing, noticing what is relaxed and what isn't relaxed, and can you breathe into it and relax it a little bit. Shall we go over? So I just want to say, so the tips that we've shared, and all of you will have the replay, and you can watch it again or catch the tips. The tips that we've shared are grounding, focus words, optimal breathing, optimal standing.
Metacognition, like just getting into that habit of being the witness to your thoughts, the discerning, mindful metacognition. It's like a tip that you can take with you anytime.
And it's so valuable.
Super
Metacognition
important.
is
Step one.
really great.
Step one.
And I think we did more.
Well, Soham and
Yep, Soham, Om Tat Sat.
just the breathing, expanding the ribs. That in itself can be a great practice.
And optimal
breathing.
standing, optimal breathing.
Non-judgment.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would say noticing
Media
judgment,
fast.
media fast, and noticing judgment out in the culture. Noticing judgment on your screens. Noticing yourself being judgmental. Noticing that if you're judgmental to other people, how it comes flying back at you when you make a mistake. And just developing this new habit of discernment, mindful discernment.
So, does anyone have any questions for us? You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask, or you can go into the comments and let us know if you have a question. And while we're allowing space for questions, I do want to share that we are going to be sending out a coupon for a free entrance into one of the mini courses that we created on IMI, and it's called Reboot the Mind. And Monty has put that together. Lamont has put that together. So you'll all be getting that one and learning some more about focus words.
Well, more than that, what this class is about, it's just a preview. It's I talked about cultivating the mind, cultivating your mind garden, right? And what this practice is about is implanting certain specific positive messaging into your mind garden. And it's a technique of how to practice this every day and how to use it. And ideally, as your mind garden shifts, and your story shifts, your self-esteem shifts, all this.
Yes, I would say that breathing while you're laying down. Oh, to Renee. I think I've got that right. I hope I've got that right. I'm trying. Breathing laying down, I definitely suggest on the back if you can. If you can't, on the side is good. I like to lay on my back and put a pillow under my knees and take the pillow out from under my head, so then my neck is allowed to just relax. And then I breathe all the way down, like the grounding breath that we did at the beginning. I breathe all the way down to the tailbone, and I just continually am trying to relax. And I have PTSD pretty bad, and it really comes up at night. So I have to continually go to my shoulders, go to my tailbone and my hips, and just unwind, continue to unwind. And let me see if I think there is a second part. What's most common? Oh, Lacey. How do we know what the alternate path is? What is the alternate to the only thing we know? Yes, right? You don't know what you don't know until you know. And that's what metacognition's about.
Well, and I would say, yeah, as we work on this, on our mindfulness skills, we're creating a new neural network in our brain. And the question is, how will I feel different? What will I know that's different a year from now if I keep working on it? I'm always
Yeah.
new. My mind garden's different. And I can virtually guarantee that if we're cognitively, if we're consciously working on weeding out old unproductive habits and planting new ones, it's going to be an improvement of some sort.
Yeah. I think the funny thing about that is when you learn something new and then you look back at how you would have done things different if you would have known better, that's where we have to have that mindful acceptance of ourself and know that, well, we didn't know it then, so that we can't be upset with ourselves for not choosing differently back then, and now we do know, and that's where it's at.
Well, and I tell my clients, it's, it's like a great adventure. Okay, I'm going to purposefully evolve my brain. We're at that point in humanity when we can purposefully evolve the structure, the physical structure of our brain on purpose. And the question is, how will that feel? And that's where the adventure comes in. It's like, how
Yeah,
will it feel? Psst, I don't,
yeah,
so good so far.
yeah. I have to say that since I began this journey 16 years ago, I feel a lot
I
better.
mean, my anxiety has gone from here to here,
Yeah.
I would say. And I have bouts of it still. And my
Yeah.
depression has gone from here to here,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
through this training. And it's just vastly rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And
It really
it's a great
is.
adventure.
Yes. It is a great adventure,
It's
and
like
it's very valuable for your health, the quality of life, uh, relationships with
well,
others.
it's like your life turns into this really interesting movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it feels like to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really
Absolutely.
interesting. It's like, what?
Check and see if we have any more questions. No? All right. Well, we are so grateful for all of you being here. We will be sending out a coupon, like I said, so you can have access to the free course and or you'll have access to the course for free. And like Lamont said, we have started a Facebook group that's been really great. There's just 3 basic rules: be nice, no politics, and no bullying. And otherwise, we really take care of each other and share.
The link is shared in the chat.
Okay, the link is in the chat, and yeah, IMI is launching right now, and if you haven't perused the website, please do, because we are very proud of it. We think it's really beautiful. It took a lot of effort, and it took a team, and we're really grateful for our team that's come together this year.
Yeah.
And we have our tech master here. Jeremy has been helping us with our videos, so please check out our videos. Our most
Yeah.
recent ones are really great.
Yeah. Check out our podcast too,
Yeah,
Mindful
Mindful
Radio.
Radio.
If you like what you saw, you'll like the podcast because we keep it meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah, we play more music, but Zoom, it's a little touchy with playing music, so we played piano. um, any other thoughts? Any other questions? We still have time if you have any more questions. Do you have any more thoughts? I know that I rushed you through the outline. If there's any last thoughts
Well,
that you'd like to
one
share.
thing I want to say, this is when you embark on this journey, the path is the destination, right? So just get on the path of that metacognition and working on yourself. That is the destination. And it'll take you places. It'll bring you it'll create clarity in your mind. You'll be able to more clearly see what to do, your purpose, how to get there. It's having a rudder. You're a ship in the middle of the ocean. You now have a rudder and a powerful engine, and you're able to navigate. And you see the big storm coming, and you're able to, oh, I'm going to go around it, or I'm going to plow through it. But it's very empowering, and it is a question of freedom, I believe, because I think a lot of us are caught up in old habitual patterns that have been mind patterns that have been passed down from generation to
Yeah.
generation.
Epigenetic trauma is a term.
Yeah, and it's up
passed
to
on.
us to shift that, and we can shift it because we have the know-how and we have the community. We're all in this together,
We are all in this together. We're all walking each other home.
and it feels good.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's a win-win-win-win-win.
Yeah, totally.
That's
Yeah.
the best way to put it. There's no downside to it.
And the cool thing is in a supportive community or in a teacher-student relationship as well, these supportive, healthy ways of communicating with each other and clarifying if there's miscommunications and all of that is so key for practice. If you have any difficulties from the past, it's so key to have a supportive community to talk with.
Yeah, and one thing I want to reiterate too is the idea of training when you're feeling good. Just don't save this stuff for a crisis. That's a mistake. It's ineffective. But use it to enhance your day-to-day life. Walking through a parking lot with good posture and the heart's forward, you're leading with the heart. In your mind, you're coordinating your breathing with Soham perhaps. Hearing the birds, feeling the breeze, it just feels good.
So Renee asked, do you think that it is harder for most with the social distancing scenarios of today's times, relate the posture and breathing? I think that social anxiety, like he was just saying, is through the roof, and we can only change ourselves. So that's why training is so important, and working on yourself. And what we tell clients is park in the back of the parking lot and do your mindful walking to the store so that you're already come into some sort of balance. You've already initiated a mindful perspective as you're walking into the store. So I do feel that right now it is seriously a cultural trauma that we're experiencing. And yes, all of these things are more challenging, but they're also more rewarding.
Well, and if we are stuck at home, I think the key is to really, take breaks from the screens and to train with the screens off.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing in our culture, it's just so socially acceptable to have screens on all the time. But that's not, and I think a lot of us got caught up in that, being stuck at home with screens on all the time, surrounded by screens. And it built so much anxiety and agitation.
Yeah.
So work with that. Turn the screens off for a bit. Take breaks from it.
Practice at home.
Yeah,
practice your breathing,
for
your
sure.
posture, fluid movements, focus words.
Standing.
And there's so much more, but we don't have more time to share
Even
more
go out,
skills.
if you have a back porch, go out on your back porch and just do some breathing in the morning. That's one thing I do every morning when I get up. First thing I do is I put the water on and I'll go outside. Even, for 5 minutes approximately. I tend to do Tai Chi, but if you just go outside for a few minutes and just move a little bit, breathe. Here's a good breath word. Moving, breathing thing. It's easy. You're breathing out. You're breathing in, just fluid movement. Ribs expanding, exhaling. End of the exhalation, trying to pull stomach in. Deep breaths. If it's possible, try and do this outside. Otherwise, do it inside. That's fine. Notice how there's no stopping and no starting. We're not holding our breath at all. We're just flowing through the changes. Our knees are bent, our feet are rooted into the ground. Deep breathing, fluid movement. Practice every day. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
you can put basically all of the skills that we shared with you today into one practice. You can start with the grounding, even with something simple like this, where you're drawing the energy down through your body and into the earth, bringing in benevolent energy and grounding yourself into the earth while you're breathing. And you can have that long exhale. You can do the mantra, the focus words at the same time. And of course, while you're practicing, you're on a media break. And what were the other skills? Oh, the posture. If you're in a stance like this, you're practicing your posture, you're practicing your breath. And if you need to, you can do the process train B meditation as well. It's something simple like this. You can put it all together and have your practices all done in a short amount of time. Or you can separate them and dot them through your day so that you're continually coming back to them
Well, and just keep in mind the metacognition piece, you just want to,
all the time.
yeah, well,
As
as
much
much
as
as
possible.
possible. You don't want to be hard on yourself because you're probably not used to it, so it takes a while
Yeah.
to really get used to being that witness to your thoughts. You know, one technique I use is I've labeled my unproductive thinking patterns. So I notice one, it's like, oh, that old unproductive, I'm being judgmental, or whatever it is. Or I'm just ruminating, I'm thinking too much. You know, so once you notice it, label it, and then try and just like re-steer it or reboot. Remember to reboot using focus words, quiet down that internal dialogue, boom, quiet. Finding peace, that's what a lot of this is about, is just finding moments of peace throughout the day. Even 2 seconds of peace is helpful, 5 seconds is better, but just moments of peace throughout the day, boom, boom, boom. And then you are resilient. Then you are resilient. You're ready for whatever comes your way. You're like, okay, here I am. I'm connected to the moment. You know, attempt to get connected to the moment as much as possible.
Yeah. For me, I'm the kind of person that has to have it scheduled. I have to have my morning practice and my evening practice, and I try to take a break during the day. But it's really up to you knowing yourself, committing to yourself, knowing that you're worth it, and putting the time in, and saying, I'm going to do this for 40 days straight, and write it on your calendar. I'm going to do this. And then make yourself accountable. If you fall off, it's just a game. It's totally fine. Just start over. And in that way, the metacognition becomes more and more natural the more you train. This training, I mean, look at all the monks and the yogis who've been doing this work they dedicate their lives to it, and it works.
Well, it's the key to being in charge of your thoughts instead of your thoughts being in charge of you. It really comes back to that freedom piece.
It reduces your stress, reduces your cortisol,
Well, it's
increases your
empowering.
health. Yeah.
You're super empowered. And anybody who's really successful at something, it just naturally has that ability to have quiet some of the time. It enhances our mental functioning if we can find balance in our minds that way.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Happy solstice.
Happy
The
solstice.
dawn is, the light is going to be returning more and more every day. Yeah, that's so great. So please have fun with this. Stay in touch. I see that there's some friends here, and I'm very grateful for you. Thank
Awesome.
you.
And this type of work is going to increase your ability to manifest
Oh yeah.
the world you want, the life you
Hmm.
want. That's key as far as like being motivated. It's like, what do you want to manifest? What do you want to conjure?
Hmm.
That's what we do as humans. We conjure things. Look at the world around us, all this equipment. It's all through human manifestation.
Hmm.
And on the micro level, bam, we manifest our lives. So what
Hmm.
kind of life do you want to manifest? Find peace, find clarity. It's going to help you on that path.
Hmm.
And the sky's the limit,
Yeah.
essentially.
So we'll see you on the Temple of the
Yeah,
Mind
Temple of the Mind.
and
Mindful Radio is our
Mindful
podcast.
Radio and
IMI.earth. That's a good
yeah.
place to find us as well.
Be well. Satnam, namaste,
What
aho,
do you want to
amen.
manifest?
Choose wisely. Bye bye.